So, now that 2017 is finally done and dusted, it's pretty safe to say that the gaming industry went through its fair share of ups and downs. What with the huge amount of controversy being sparked by microtransactions snaking their way into AAA titles, and on top of that, a load of titles coming out in 2017 that just did not live up to the expectations that the public were promised, and thus causing a huge pile of horse bollocks. But not everything in 2017 was that bad. There was a fair few games that came out that are going to keep us entertained and ticking over until we're deep into 2018. But fear not, my friends, for it is time to focus our eyes on the future. So join me, why don't you, in this video as we delve into 8 of some of the most anticipated games of 2018. Let's fucking do it, mate! First up, Days Gone. Now, this game made its first appearance at E3 back in 2016, and did nothing but spark interest and intrigue the audience that was watching it. However, if you were late to the Days Gone party like myself, you probably saw clips of this game being shared on your Facebook by a uni lad, probably under the title of "I need this zombie game in my life." Well, the thing is that we do need this zombie game in our life. So this game is currently under development by Bend Studio, which hasn't actually produced an intellectual property since Siphon Filter back in 1999. They have, however, made a couple of PSP and PlayStation Vita games, but nothing that could really be considered an actual game in inverted commas. It is going to be interesting to see how a gaming company that's not produced a main title for 20 years is going to play out. However, from what we've seen so far, we are going to be far from disappointed. So what do we know about this game so far? You play as this cheeky chappy, Deacon St. John, a drifter and former bounty hunter who prefers a life of danger on the road. That's not surprising considering that this game looks like a cross between The Walking Dead and Sons of Anarchy. So the game takes place in a post-apocalyptic open world set 2 years after a global pandemic occurred which killed almost all of humanity, transforming millions of others into freakers, which is what this game has classed the zombies to be. Now hopefully this game will go into a lot more detail of the story than I have, because if not, then that's going to be a bit shit. However, one thing that this game seems to be heavily influenced by is the grim aspect of The Last of Us, which in my opinion is one of the best games ever made. So if this game is able to combine the brilliance and brutality of The Last of Us whilst chucking in possibly the biggest amount of zombies we've ever seen in a game ever, then my friends, we could be looking at one of the best games of 2018. Oh yeah, did I also forget to mention that this game has zombie bears in it? Zombie bears. I'll just let that sink in for a moment. All in all, this game seems to be showing a huge amount of potential to be a top quality game. And being that I'm a survival horror enthusiast, I'm looking forward to this game 100%. However, last time I got my hopes up for a game, it was No Man's Sky, and we all know what a shower of shit that was, don't we? Anyway, now that that's done, let's move on to the next game. Up next, Sea of Thieves. At first glance, one of two things could potentially happen with this game. Either it's going to be one of the funnest cooperative games of 2018, or it's going to be the quickest way to break up a close circle of friends since trying to complete Left 4 Dead 2 on the hardest difficulty. This game is the long-awaited return of the classic game development company Rare, who back in the late 90s, early 2000s brought us such comedy gold as Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day. They also gave some of us our first insight into 3D first-person shooters with GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark. So now the guys and girls at Rare have brought their heads together once again, put all of their previous experiences on the table, and have put them into what looks to be a fantastic modern day gaming experience. To me, it looks like it's a cross between Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Curse of Monkey Island, which in my opinion is fucking awesome. Sea of Thieves is an action-adventure co-op game where you and 3 of your close-knit buddies can become a band of swashbuckling bastards, sailing the high seas and exploring what looks to be quite an extensive open world. However, if you and your team want your pirate ship to run as smoothly as a Barry White record, you're gonna need to take on an array of tasks in order for this to be achieved. Such jobs include things like steering, hoisting sails, navigation below decks, firing cannons, and repairing any damage that the ship has taken. But the most vital job of all is to drink grog, have a good old sing-song, and keep up the morale of the crew. The other interesting part about this game is that it's a shared world, which means that not only are you going to have to make sure that your ship is in tip-top condition, you're also going to have to keep an ever-watchful eye out for any other bands of swashbuckling bastards that happen to be roaming the same parts of the sea as you. So if you happen to be in a pirate ship that is filled with booty, then you better be prepared to either fight to the death or be a master in the art of negotiation. Sea of Thieves has a whole range of different missions to take part in and various loot to be collected, but if I go into any more detail about it, then I could be here for several hours. But altogether, Sea of Thieves is really looking like it's going to be an awesome piece of cooperative gameplay, with communication being a key element to survival. Right, now that that's done, let's move on, shall we? Next on the list, Far Cry 5. Similar to its predecessors, Far Cry 5 is an action-adventure first-person shooter set in the fictional open-world environment of Hope County, Montana. Hope County is a politically torn city. On one side you have the main antagonist, Joseph Seed, or the father of which he has assumed the title of. Seed believes that he has been chosen to protect the people of Hope County from an inevitable collapse, and has established a congregation called Eden's Gate. In reality, Seed is just a radical preacher, and Eden's Gate is a militaristic doomsday cult. He is inevitably a massive prick, because he uses violence to forcibly convert the residents of Hope County, and intimidation to keep them from contacting the outside world for help. On the other side of things, you have the remaining Hope County residents who are organising themselves into a resistance movement. And then this is where you come in. The player takes on the role of a sheriff's deputy who is part of a task force sent to Hope County to arrest Joseph Seed. However, when an attempt to arrest Seed ends with the deaths of several lawmen, the player is swept into armed conflict between Eden's Gate and the resistance movement. Right, now that's the story out the way, just look how bloody gorgeous this game looks! In all seriousness though, this game really looks like it's going to be a big step up from the previous games in the Far Cry series. But it's not just the graphics that are going to be improving. Unlike previous titles in the series where the player takes on the role of a set character, the game will feature a new character creator, which the player can use to customize their character's appearances. There's also a renewed emphasis on close quarters combat, which means that there's going to be a much wider range of melee weapons. However, the one thing that intrigues me about this game so far is that rather than giving you guidance at the beginning of the game, the player is dropped into the game world with little context, direction or objective markers, and is instead required to navigate the world on their own. I personally am a big fan of this, because it means that not all players are going to have the same experience when they play this game for the first time. So altogether, it seems like Far Cry 5 is going to be in pole position in the Far Cry series, and I for one are going to be incredibly interested to see how they improve upon this. That is, of course, if they make a Far Cry 6. You know, I hope they do. That'd be pretty good. Right, it's time to move on, my friends. Let's do this. Next up, A Way Out. If you and a friend of yours are looking for a co-op game that's going to shake things up a little bit, then A Way Out is looking like it's going to be the one for you. The reason why I said friend and not friends is because this game is strictly a two-player split-screen co-op. It doesn't even have a single-player game mode, which is something that's quite rare in the gaming world these days, because most cooperative games will normally follow up with a single-player campaign whereby the other player is played by the computer. But not in this case. This game was developed by the same people that brought you Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which was surprisingly well received in the gaming community. So when they announced A Way Out at E3 2017, it seemed to spark a little bit of interest. Kind of like if a mate of yours offered if you want a takeaway and they said they were going to pay for it, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm interested. So what exactly is this game all about then? You and your friend will be taking on the role of Leo and Vincent, two convicted prisoners who must break out of prison and stay on the run from the police. As the game unfolds, each player's story is told simultaneously, which means that their progress may not be synchronized. This will result in one player being able to control their character whilst the other is watching a cutscene. Each of you will need to cooperate with each other in order to progress, and each situation can be approached differently, with both characters taking different roles. For example, during a prison escape scene, one player needs to distract the guards whilst the other player needs to find a tool to aid their escape. The cool thing is as well is that the roles are not fixed, so it adds a sense of replayability, so if you wanted to go back and play through it again, you can play the roles that you didn't the first time round. The game features a wide variety of sequences from stealth to driving to ensure that players are often presented with different situations and generally make the game just that little bit more interesting. Despite the game's heavy focus on multiplayer, the game was described as an emotional adventure, so to make the game more realistic, each character has their own distinctive personalities, and as a result they will have different opinions and responses whilst interacting with the game's world. Now, the one thing that is slightly concerning me about this game is how long it's going to take to complete. I have a feeling that this game is going to last about as long as I do in bed, which is about 3 to 6 hours. Yay! But seriously, if this game does last longer than 10 hours, then I think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised. But if it doesn't, then it's not the end of the world, because it's just a good excuse to have a good old night session of gaming. Personally, I am looking forward to A Way Out, because I feel it's going to be a good excuse for you and your buddy to chill out on the couch, have a couple of drinks, and just enjoy a piece of top quality gaming. Right, ladies and gents, what's next on the agenda? Well, let's bloody well find out, shall we? Next game we have on the list is Crackdown 3. Now, this game has the potential to contain one of the most destructive environments in video game history. The developers of this game have been working on a new form of technology where each section of the environment is powered by its own independent cloud service. Basically, what that means is that you and 9 other people can jump in on a multiplayer game session and completely fuck the place up. The unfortunate thing, though, is that we haven't heard anything about this since 2015 when it was first revealed. So whether or not they're actually going to go through with this new technology, or if it's going to be anywhere near as good as they say it's going to be, is a bit of a mystery. I, for one, am hoping that they pull this off, because if they do, then it's going to be so good. For those of you who aren't aware what Crackdown is all about, let me fill you in. Crackdown 3 follows the same formula as all the previous entries in the Crackdown series, putting you in the role of a futuristic super policeman with a suit of power armor and futuristic weapons that makes you more powerful than Superman. As this all-brilliant being, you're then expected to run around the open world city, picking up missions and dealing with each gang, which is color-coded in specific areas of the map. The game is scheduled to have a 4-player co-op campaign, which could make things a little bit more interesting, considering how this game seems to be carrying the same old-school torch of go here, kill things, without any real story behind it. But if you're like me and you've not actually played the first 2 games in this series, then this could actually be a fairly decent pickup every now and again when you're taking a break from your main game type of game. You know what I mean. So if the developers are able to pull off what they said they were going to with the multiplayer, then I think this game is going to be played by a lot of people for a long time. But if it turns out to be a load of old bollocks, then this game is going to go into the monthly free games on Xbox faster than your nan can finish a bottle of sherry at Christmas. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and pray that it's going to be as good as we hope it is. Right, now that that's done, let's move on, peeps. Next game on the list is God of War. Yes, Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, is back and has also grown one of the best beards I've ever seen. It's been 5 years since we last saw this raving lunatic of Greek mythology, and if you're a fan of the series and think that this is going to be similar to the previous titles in the God of War series, then you thought wrong. The gameplay is going to be vastly different from anything that we've seen in previous God of War titles, because the developers have completely redesigned the game's mechanics. From gameplay trailers that we've seen so far, it seems like the developers have done away with the traditional hack and slash aspect of the game and replaced it with what looks like a combination of Shadow of Mordor, The Witcher 3 and Horizon Zero Dawn. Some people might think this is a good thing, others will think it's a bad thing, but for me personally, I think that this is going to be a refreshing change. While the first 7 games of the series were loosely based on Greek mythology, this game is going to be based on Norse mythology. I have no idea what that means either. I just think of it as like a BC AD changeover kind of thing. You will once again be taking on the role of Kratos. Many years have passed since he took his revenge against the Olympian gods, and having survived his final encounter with his father Zeus, Kratos now lives with his young son Atreus in the world of the Norse gods. This world is a savage land inhabited by many ferocious warriors and monsters, just like El Dickhead here that looks like Smaug with his wings clipped. Kratos must master the rage that has driven him for many years and embrace his newfound role as a father and mentor. Over the course of their time together, Atreus learns more about his father's complicated past, and while struggling to survive in this dangerous world, he must decide as to whether to be his own person or to be like his dad. And just like Clementine in The Walking Dead and Ellie from The Last of Us, I will do everything in my power to make sure that he stays alive. So altogether, it seems like God of War is going to have some pretty intense gameplay, coupled with quite an enthralling story. And if the PlayStation Store's accidental leak of information is correct, then God of War should be hitting the shelves worldwide on March 22nd. Although, don't hold me to that because I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going off what it says on the internet. Right, we're on the home stretch, lads. We've got 2 more games to go. Let's do this. Next up, The Last of Us Part 2. This game is arguably one of the most anticipated sequels to a gaming franchise ever. The game was first revealed at the PlayStation Experience event back in December 2016, and when it was revealed, it kicked up a huge amount of excitement within the gaming community. In fact, it created so much excitement that the game won several awards, including Most Anticipated Game of the Year and Most Wanted Game of the Year. The first teaser trailer that was shown to the public revealed the return of Ellie and Joel, whose story takes place 5 years after the first game. The player will assume control of Ellie, who is now 19 years old, and also is rocking a pretty fashionable tattoo, which so many enthusiasts were desperate to find out what the tattoo meant. The most interesting thing about Part 2 so far is the contrast that it has with the first installment. The creators of the game have stated that the first part was centered around love, but then the second part will be centered around hate, which in my opinion is such an interesting concept. The game's second trailer was then released in October 2017 as part of Paris Games Week. The trailer revealed 4 new characters: Yara, Lev, Emily, and a character which is yet to be named. While the game's second trailer was mostly well received, it did however draw quite a lot of criticism for its violence, in particular its violence against women. The criticism noted that while the violence in the first game was justified and the victims, quote, aren't women or marginalized people, the trailer contained no such justification. The president of Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe defended the trailer by stating the game is made by adults to be played by adults. Get in, son. In my opinion about this game though, one thing is for certain. After everything that we've seen with the first part of The Last of Us, what with its intense gameplay and completely enthralling storyline, it's safe to say that Part 2 cannot be any worse. It's only gonna get better. Right, it's time for the final game in this list. Let's get involved, son. And finally, on this list, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. This game has created more buzz than wearing a pair of pants that's made out of bees. This game is the long-awaited and hugely anticipated sequel to the classic 2010 title, Red Dead Redemption. The classic Rockstar game that brought you the immersive world of outlaws, gambling, classic western shootouts, and crushing damsels in distress under trains. So what do we know about this game so far? Red Dead Redemption 2 brings players a brand new protagonist called Arthur Morgan. The game will follow this outlaw and the Van der Linde gang as they rob and fight their way across America. The main antagonist from the previous game, Dutch, is back. Whether or not he'll be the same antagonistic force is unclear, but it's pretty unlikely that he's going to be a good guy, isn't it? Also, the open world environment looks absolutely stunning, of which I'm sure we will all be able to traverse it in the classic ways, by foot, horseback, and maybe even possibly by rail. There's also another little feature that was recently introduced by Rockstar Games. If you are a GTA 5 online player, you will be given the opportunity to find a golden revolver. Once you find the revolver and complete the task that is assigned with it, you will then be able to use that gun in Red Dead Redemption 2 when it's released. That is a cunning way to keep your fans excited for the release of this game. Hopefully when we get closer to the release date, we'll be given more information about the single player and the online multiplayer. But so far, it's safe to say that this game is going to be absolutely quality. So that's 8 highly anticipated games of 2018. If you guys have enjoyed the video, then leave a like. Also, if you have any other gaming topics that you'd like me to cover, be sure to leave a comment down below. Also, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button before you disappear. Thanks very much for watching, guys. This has been 8-Bit Bastard, and I will catch you all later.